Today on International Women's Day, we celebrate generosity, collaboration, leadership, resilience, and progress. Few sectors better reflect both the challenges and the opportunity of progress than construction. Construction is one of Ontario's most important economic drivers. Over the next decade, our province will need to recruit more than 154,000 new workers to meet the growing demand, as well as replace the retiring workforce. The opportunity is enormous. And yet, women currently make up only 5% of Ontario's construction workforce. That's just over 22,000 women across the province. And when you look specifically at women working on the tools, that number drops even further to 14,000. Those numbers tell a story of untapped potential. But here's what they don't tell: the commitment, the pride, the staying power of the women who are already building Ontario's infrastructure every single day. The 2025 Ontario Building and Construction Tradeswomen Survey, based on 342 responses from tradeswomen across the province, paints a far more nuanced and encouraging picture. 82% of tradeswomen see themselves still working in the industry in the next 2 to 5 years. 62% report being satisfied with their job and work environment, and 65% are satisfied with their compensation and benefits. That is not a story of women reluctantly surviving in the trades. That is a story of women choosing to stay, build careers, and shape the future of this industry. At the same time, this survey reminds us that progress requires intention. 58% of women entered the trades as a second career, and more than half joined after the age of 25, suggesting that earlier exposure could unlock even more talent. 52% reported experiencing harassment on the job, and among those who reported it, more than half were dissatisfied with how that's handled. That's a big issue. 65% identified the need for properly fitting personal protective equipment and appropriate facilities, and perhaps most tellingly, 67% said that increasing the number of women in the leadership positions is critical for long-term retention. These findings aren't discouraging, they're directional. They show us where the industry has improved and where leadership, unions, employers, and governments must continue to act. And that's where organizations like the Ontario Building and Construction Tradeswomen play such an essential role. The OBCT exists to ensure women in the trades feel inspired, welcomed, and empowered. Through mentorship, advocacy, and training, they're helping to build safer, stronger, and more inclusive workplaces, not just for women, but for everyone. Today's conversation brings that data to life. We're joined by two trailblazers who represent both progress and possibility. Nickie Lavoie, a longtime Boilermaker and proud member of the OBCT, who has spent her career working in some of the most demanding industrial environments, and Pullen, a seasoned electrician, OBCT member, and board member of the Provincial Building and Construction Trades Council of Ontario, who not only built her career on the tools, but now helps to shape the future of the industry at the leadership level. I'm Brian Barron, CEO of the Ontario Construction Secretariat, and welcome to OCS Talks.
Welcome to OCS Talks, your source for all things related to Ontario's unionized ICI construction sector.
Karen and Nickie, how are you?
Feeling great.
We're doing fine.
Excellent. Well, it's so nice to have you guys. So, Karen, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your career and what made you become an electrician.
Well, I never took electrical at high school or anything. I took auto mechanics and drafting. And then I went into my first year of ambulance and emergency healthcare and decided that that was not what I wanted to do. And got looking at the trades. I had always helped my father around the house and was always very mechanically inclined. And I got looking at the qualifications on the trades and thought, well, electrical has one of the most highly qualified or educated workforce. So that's what I chose. I thought, really, I didn't have any direction at that time. There was no direction for women getting into the trades. I don't think it mattered what trade I gravitated towards. I was going to be told this really wasn't for me and it's going to be a hard road. But I was fine with all of that, and I'm thankful for my choices.
How many years have you been an electrician?
Well, last year I got my 35-year PIN.
Congratulations.
So realistically, though, it's more like 37 because you get your PIN based on when you were initiated into the local. So
it's fair to say that you've seen a fair bit over that 37
I have seen a fair bit. Yes.
Yeah. All right. And Nickie, so tell us a little bit about your career, what that looked like, why you became a Boilermaker.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I grew up with a single mother. I wasn't really introduced to much of the trades. So I kind of started out in college with what I thought was going to be an entrepreneurship course. Turned more into hotel hospitality management. So I completed that year and decided this is definitely not the direction I wanted to go in. Now that summer, I had a cousin who I was visiting over at his place, and he had a welding machine and all that sort of set up, and he let me play with it for a little bit. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back and take at least a welding course. So I did that. I started handing out resumes. Now you got to remember, this is probably about 25 years ago, handing out resumes, and right in front of me, often it got thrown in the garbage and said that I would be too intimidated by the big machinery. So, being a little bit frustrated, came back home. Now, my mother has a friend that was currently working in the office of the Boilermakers and said, well, come in and do an aptitude test. So I did that. And then she said, go about your life as if it never happened, because they weren't doing very many intakes at that time. So I did, and I went back to school and I took automotive and started working towards that, completed the 2-year course, and then was waiting. I was working at a local car shop here in Sudbury and waiting to get signed as an apprentice, when lo and behold, I ended up getting a phone call from the Boilermakers. And at that time, I was in significant debt from the schooling and making minimum wage, which was $6.85 an hour at the time. So I was a little reluctant to make that job transition because I couldn't afford to have that interruption in the bills. And then he started outlining the wage increase compared to what I was making at the time. And after he finished describing the big picture, I basically said, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm giving my notice. So it took off from there.
Yeah. So both of you kind of had sort of very different thoughts in the beginning, and then ended up where you are now. So I know when we had talked before, when we were kind of planning this for International Women's Day, we had talked about some of the challenging environments that you had been in the beginning of your career, and it's certainly supported by the stats. When we look at discrimination and some of the difficulties and that sort of stuff, I'm curious as to kind of, have you really seen this change over the years? Are we heading in the right direction? Just even from your guys' opening comments around, walking in and people just not even taking your application seriously and that kind of stuff. What does that look like today?
Well, I think we are moving in the right direction. To say that we're anywhere near equal would be ridiculous. We still have to work twice as hard, prove ourselves every day. You're not just accepted like the guys are. It's a proving ground. On every day you go to work, you're in a proving ground, and you are scrutinized and watched, and that still exists. And the one thing I can say about it existing before was at least it was out in the open. Now, because it's legally it's not supposed to be existing. It's a little bit more underground, but I can say that we have a lot more progressive people working in the industry, and that changes drastically from year to year. That needle is, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Once it gets so big, you can't stop it. So I think we're at that tipping point where things are going to be improving drastically for women in construction. And, the OBCT has some great pride in that, because we have really set the bar high and continue to hold people accountable.
So, Nickie, before I go on to you, I just want to go back to something you said there, Karen, about, at least, in the past, it was sort of out in the open, but does it just sort of feel less genuine, the commitment to it now? Or are people unsure? What do you think it is?
It's construction culture. And until we get enough years in that culture starts to change, this is going to still exist. But younger people don't have the same issues that some of the older generation had. And so as we see a lot of that generation retiring, we see some more progressive people entering the workforce. The foremen are becoming more progressive, and companies themselves are becoming more progressive. But it takes time to shift that culture. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in a decade, really. This has been decades in the works, and I think at some point we'll get there, but we're not there quite yet.
Nickie, what are your thoughts?
Very similar. It's very much so very different from when I first got in. There was maybe, with regards to the Boilermakers in my area, one or two women, me running off the Sudbury list, I was really the only one for a lot of years. And through that, I did meet some people that were, okay, well, let's challenge you because I want to see if you can do this. And it was challenged in a positive way. Now, there were other circumstances where they would deliberately go out of their way to make your life a living hell and turn around and say, well, you chose this, you wanted this. And so, some things you pick your battles and you grin and bear it, and you just, you get through the motions. Now I'm seeing a lot more with the younger generation. It's a lot more accepting to in the industry where women are given a little bit more opportunity, but there still is that battle where if they don't know you, then you're starting from scratch. Never mind what the reputation is. And then, of course, it depends on their mentality. Their generation is huge. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still milestones, that, we still need to come. But compared to when I first got in, it is a lot different. And the number of ladies that we have in our union now is much greater than when I was. Now, still, when you want to compare numbers, men and women, we're still nowhere near equal. Like, we're talking like a 5%, maybe we're hitting 10%, but 5%, women. But definitely the, like I said, back when I got in, everyone shot my resume in the garbage except for the Boilermakers. So they're the ones who did originally give me that opportunity. And now looking forward, being 21 years in the trade now, the training position came up in Sudbury and I applied for it. And I have to admit, deep in my heart, I thought, well, because I'm a woman, they're not going to give it to me. And lo and behold, the people that were, hiring for this position were actually quite progressive people. And they turned around and they said, no, we actually like your thinking. We like, how you approach things. And I got the job, and I've been sitting in the training position as a weld instructor for now 4 years. So, things definitely have changed. Is it 100%? Well, no. I mean, it is the construction world, and it's going to take time. So,
and with all of that said, but like from both of us, it's a rough world for young men too.
It is.
Yeah. If they see you as weak in any way, they get as rough a ride sometimes as we do. So
yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's an underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is probably a bit of a difference there in terms of the acceptance. And
absolutely.
The barriers and challenges that you guys have had to overcome are pretty significant. But one of the things that I do want to take a look at here is, so like, I mean, both of you had expressed that you've obviously had some bad experiences, but you've also had some really good experiences. And one of the things that I would like kind of to be able to really lay out for our listeners is, what do those good experiences look like? What were those factors that really helped you guys to feel like, no, I'm one of the team. I'm feeling part of this group and we're plowing ahead kind of thing, where there isn't kind of that difference that's sort of perceived that's out there. So what do some of those, one of the good experiences look like?
I came into the lunch shack one time. This is back when I was relatively new. And there was one gentleman there that I knew in particular. And right away, when I walked through the door, you can tell that they were probably given that speech. Watch what you were saying, blah, 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 whatever. And when I walked through that door, you kind of see that there was a little bit of reluctance, as for, me being there. And then when this gentleman saw me, he's like, oh, guys, don't worry about it. It's her. She's fine. She's like, whatever. And that changed the environment in that lunch shack that day. Just him standing up alone for me. And it happened to be, it turned out to be like an excellent job, because not only did I get taught, but I got to do stuff. You know, there was no doubt in my ability. And every day I went in, it felt better and better and better. And by the end of it, you got more out of me, you know, because everybody was encouraging you. They were teaching you, you know, and it's a nice change from some of those jobs where you get very discouraged because you don't get the opportunity to show that you can do this. Because, I mean, let's face it, when they set you up where, you know, with the thought, thinking going into it, well, she can't do it. Well, of course I can't do it at this point because you're just not going to let me. So often it was those jobs where it's, here, let's teach you something. Let's show you this. And even if it was in a challenging way, just to kind of put me through, okay, can you handle this? I appreciated that because I grew from it. I learned from it, but there was nothing negative about it. So I always found those jobs were the ones that empowered me. And those were the ones I would go home and take that deep breath, smile and say, this is why I'm doing this, right? I got to do so many exciting things today. And that's pretty well what held me in through the duration of my career.
So you're first and foremost seen as a coworker and not, you know, not from a gender perspective, but just somebody who, and let's face it, I mean, both of you guys, you've gone through your apprenticeships, you got all the exact same training that everybody else did. You've got the same qualifications walking into that. And ultimately, I mean, I think it's fair to say that that's exactly what should be seen, you know, nothing else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Karen, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with Nickie. Being viewed as just one of the workers and not being centered out was huge for just for your work ethic and just to be able to learn your trade and show that you're good at your trade. I think that a lot of women, especially that enter into this type of work, are actually very mechanically inclined and good at the trade. And you know, we're not quite as fragile as they think we are. And being able to learn from, especially back then, some of the older guys that really had a lot to teach. And they might not have particularly cared much for you at first, but then they saw that you were willing to learn and willing to put kind of foot to ass to do it. Often took you under their wing and made you feel accepted and respected. And that's where you really got to grow quickly. So.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, I spent years at the government on the enforcement side of health and safety and that sort of stuff. And I always maintained, and I still do to this day, that the supervisor is the key to a successful job. And whether it's kind of the supervisor of a job site, the supervisor of a crew, a 4-person, any of those sorts of people, they're the ones who are going to set the tone for that crew. And if they've got that positive outlook and they're not looking at, you know, what somebody, you know, is, you know, not looking at them sort of beyond that worker standpoint kind of thing, they're going to start to cause problems, right? And one of the big things for me is I always look at supervisors where, listen, if they're leading that project in a way where it empowers everybody on that job site, you're going to have a good job. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Being more than a bystander, and speaking up when you see something not correct happening, especially as one of the respected members of a crew, makes a huge difference. That you know, and our brothers who did that for us, we have the utmost respect for them, because I don't think any of us would be where we're at if that didn't happen. So,
you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to shout out a name or something, but there was a certain gentleman within our organization that he never held me back. He gave me every first in that trade. And like you made a statement of, we all get the same training going into it. That is correct. But what you don't get is the same training on site. And that's where you really learn your trade, is on site, you know, when you're actually doing those jobs. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, there was always a big mix, but most of the time the problems I had were with the gentlemen around my own age, because they would get intimidated that I would do better than them. And that could not happen. Okay. That was, emasculating to them in a sense, when, that thinking should never have been there, because in all reality, if we support each other and we teach each other, my goodness, we're all going to succeed way more. And, we're going to give our trade a much better name. And if we all just did that. So.
Absolutely. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Ontario Building and Construction Trades Women and what they're doing to help support women in the trades. So from your guys' experience and working with the OBCT, how are they helping? So let's start with you, Nickie.
So one, for myself, joining the OBCT, it's a great way to network and meet other women within other trades. And you get to hear their experiences, because a lot of our trades are different environments, compared to one another. So, getting their stories and hearing some of the stuff they've gone through definitely makes me feel somewhat normal, right? Okay, it's not, just the one sector. It's not just this. It's somewhat across the board. And then we get to share ideas on how to correct and fix some of this and some of the mentality. Just being in this position that I'm in now, I get to try and change some of that mentality. I get to have the conversation with some of these guys of, come on, let's change this a little bit, right? Like, or maybe change the joke a little bit, But with regards to the OBCT, we do this info session and, women get to come on and ask their questions, find the different pathways into the different sectors. And I think that's quite valuable, because I never had that when I was entering into the trades. It was a fly by the seat of your pants guessing game. For the first year I was in the Boilermakers, I barely knew what we did, So, had I been a little more educated coming into a lot of it, certainly would have been a lot more helpful. So, these ladies that I've met they're phenomenal. And I learn every time I speak to them. So.
Well, my only experience with the OBCT at this point is with both Jillian and Kate. And I got to tell you, they're two absolute rock stars. They have a blast every event we're at, and just amazing advocates. Karen, what are your thoughts on the OBCT and how they're helping?
Well, being in construction as long as I've been, and the OBCT has put a group of women together to kind of move this forward, pushing government to make changes, making sure that the hierarchy of our locals is taking this seriously and dealing with it. And we have a good group of men that are helping with that and making sure that this message is going out and being filtered throughout the locals in Ontario. And for me, to be in a group of women where you don't have to explain every time you say something, where you can speak and just it's understood because they've been in the environment. On a construction site is not an environment that most people know anything about. The culture on a construction site, the having to keep your head on a swivel because there's so much going on. And it's nice just to be with a group of women. And we don't just extend invitation to the OBCT to unionized women. It's extended to all women in the construction trades across Ontario, hoping that they will find themselves with their correct unions eventually. And women in non-union need as much support as we do, maybe even more. And so we don't discriminate that way. And as Nickie said, with CTOW, putting together and kind of getting out all that information, putting together a wonderful website where anybody can go and research different trades with all the videos that we've been able to put together to highlight the trade. I love the way those videos have been done, because it's not look at me, I'm a woman. It is look at my trade. I happen to be a woman doing this, and a woman can do this. And because a lot of times we're kind of touted around as the token gesture woman for the time being, and none of us are that. We've all earned our stripes, and it's nice just for these women to be able to have their trade highlighted and be the person speaking about it. And so that has been a great thing with the Ontario Building and Construction Tradeswomen, and just the support we get from the unions around the province that are signatory. It's been wonderful. And just to see how many women have now been elevated to different roles, like Nickie teaching, like myself as a business rep of the local, like Jillian, uh, it's just lovely to see how many women are taking on higher positions, becoming, sitting on boards, teaching. Jess teaches. Just out of our IBEW 804, she teaches. She's full-time instructor as well. It's just really nice that women get to see other women in these positions, knowing that whatever they want to do is achievable. So I'm happy to be that trailblazer for people to see that they can maybe be the business managers of their locals, or even their international reps. So it's a great thing to be able to kind of demonstrate that those things are achievable.
Yeah. So I'd also like to add the free training that the OBCT offers is often quite valuable too. They offer so many courses with regards to running a good meeting, public speaking. I mean, prior to me getting into any of this, you would not have caught me on camera talking to you guys. I probably would have been so nervous, right? But a lot of that comes from the support that I've had from some of this training and some of these ladies. And mental health first aid, like I can go on with, they've got so many courses available. Some are available to men and women, and some of them are just strictly available to women, but it's free. Like, goodness. I mean, you don't get that too often anymore. So,
and we managed to get that ADA training, anti-discrimination, anti-harassment training, which Shivani Singh put together, and with the help of all of us, and but she did a great job with that, and we're petitioning government to have that implemented as training coming into any of the trades, like, or actually into all apprenticeship training, the same as you would have to take fall protection and WMIS. So hopefully that becomes an adopted training.
Being sort of reasonably new to the union world. I mean, I've always sort of worked adjacent to it, but now sort of being really kind of engrossed in it. It's one of the things that I think is truly, one of the kind of the superpowers of the unionized environment is that dedication to training, trying to be better, trying to continue to advance, kind of how we work together, as well as kind of that skills side. Obviously, with some of the other podcasts that I've done, we've really kind of focused on what are the advantages? Yeah, why would somebody want to come to construction? And I know when I was going through school, I went to a trade school for a high school. And at the time, it was seen as almost a punishment. It was seen as something where it's like, you're not going anywhere, that kind of stuff. And it was sort of seen as this sort of almost second tier type career path. And I got to tell you, I've had this phenomenal career in construction. It's been amazing. I wouldn't change it for the world. And I'm trying to work hard to try and change people's mindset around, careers in construction, because let's face it, they're great careers. They're great paying. They got great benefits, especially when you're in the union. I mean, it's just the benefits, the protections, the pension, that sort of stuff is amazing. So I guess really it's kind of as a final thought, from you guys to anybody who might be listening, or to anybody thinking about hiring on, women onto their crews, what would you like to share with them? Like, what would you like to share? If you were listening, if you were talking to young women right now who were at your guys' points, 25, 35 years ago, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that I have had a wonderful career. And when I was raising my children, I wasn't as involved as I am now, because I simply didn't have the time. That they were truly, my passion was to make sure that I was there for my children, and could provide as much as I could for them. And so that's why a career with a trade union really served that well. I worked hard. but I earned a decent paycheck. I had wonderful benefits, and I don't know how many other types of work that when the end of the day came, you could leave it behind, go home, and not think about it again until you went to work the next day. There's not very many types of work that happens. And it allowed you to truly engage in your family. And so taking a job as a business rep is a little different now, but that is a choice I made. But working on the tools, you simply go to work hard. You know, you earn a decent pay for decent amount of work, and you leave it there, go home to your family, and can provide all the medical benefits, all the supports you need for your family, engagement with union, you know, we have a picnic and Wonderland and children's Christmas party and all of these things. My kids became part of that family as well. And so I don't know. I don't know that I could have raised my children without the union, honestly.
It's interesting that, you know, the point that you're bringing up around kind of being able to walk away at the end of the day and be able to focus on your life. I think there's another aspect to that as well. It's also the sense of accomplishment. I think a lot of people lose that sense of, man, I put a good day in. Like, that was a hard day. I earned my check today, kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I don't think you get in every job. You just don't. Nickie, what are your thoughts? What would you have to say?
So, you know, it's those jobs where you accomplish something, you worked extremely hard. You come home, you feel invigorated, right? So to anybody who is, you know, I mean, obviously know yourself before you get into anything, right? And often anybody who chooses a certain path in life is somehow going to veer down somewhere else and end up where they're supposed to be. But if you're the type of person who is not afraid of physical activity and actually enjoys using your body, trades is definitely a path that, you know, is extremely lucrative. And like Karen said, like with some of these unions, it's a family sort of environment. Your pension, your benefits, you know, there are some people that I went to school with, you know, back then, and they took the university route. They took those routes, and some of them are still struggling to get decent, high paying jobs. And here I am, you know, making a ton more money than they are, you know. It's know yourself. And if, you know, like that stigma of, you know, trades, you know, being, you got to be the dummy who can't make it in real life, you got to go to the trades. I think that's a load of crap, because you really got to use your mind when you're out there. You've really got to educate yourself. And no, it's not necessarily all from, you know, a book perspective. But I'll tell you, you learn some incredibly neat things, and it's not something I would, you know, I don't regret. I would never take back a single moment. It's made me who I am today. Yeah, it's just, to anybody, you know, consider it. At least consider it. Educate yourself on it. You know, you might have some family members that are a bit biased towards it still, but, you know, maybe try to, you know, expand and speak to some of the people who are actually in the industries, because it is so well worth it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. You know, it's one of these things that makes me smile, because it's a job that I loved. I mean, I'm sort of office bound now. But when I was out in the field, when I was on sites, it's a feeling like none other. It's certainly a job to be proud of, for sure. So with that, what I'll do is I'd really like to thank you guys for coming on. I'd like to thank you for your insights. You know, I sincerely hope that we're on the right path, that we are kind of moving that needle a little bit. I know that over my time in construction, I've seen a significant change in how women are accepted on job sites, but it's certainly, there's a lot more work to be done. And I'm thankful for the two of you guys for the work that you've done, as well as for the work that the OBCT is doing and their dedication to helping women in the trades. So really, you know, when we take a look at this, and when you look at the spirit of International Women's Day, you know, it's not just to celebrate kind of the presence of women on site, but also celebrating the progress And in construction, especially in Ontario's construction industry, that progress is being built by women like the two of you guys. So, so I do thank you for that. Today's podcast was to help support and really promote women in construction and to help motivate upcoming generations of women to choose an amazing career in the trades. It's something that's done very well for me. It sounds like it's done very well for you guys. Doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of regrets there. So with that, again, I'd really like to thank you, Karen, from the IBW, and you, Nickie, from the Boilermakers, as well as the Ontario Building and Construction Tradeswomen for their time today on the OCS Talks. For more information on today's podcast and resources from the Ontario Construction Secretariat, please visit our website at iciconstruction.com and follow us on social media. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ontario Construction Secretariat. Knowledge to build on. Visit iciconstruction.com to learn more.